What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're looking at the latest update to Enscape. It's Enscape 2.8. There's a lot to cover in this video, and I sure hope you really enjoy it. If you do and you happen to learn something also, please demolish that like button. That really helps me out a lot. Also, consider changing the phase of that subscribe button to existing. Please do that. That helps me out so much too. So here we are. We're in the sample project for Enscape. It's Enscape 2.8. It's a very big update, and I'm honestly very excited about what this update has to offer. And we're going to cover all of that in this video. So the biggest thing right out of the box that we need to look at is collaboration. So we're familiar with BIM objects. If I hit B, we could see all these different objects. It's basically everything in my entire model. And I'm pulling this out of a Revit model. So I can close this. And we also now have the option of collaboration. So we can access this by clicking C. And if I click C, we get this similar looking operation where we can select the BIM objects in our model in Enscape. But we have this completely separate tab over here that's the collaboration tab. And if you're familiar with other types of collaboration, be it in Bluebeam or other types of softwares that track your progress, track issues, basically tracking reviews that you need to address when it comes to the model, the documents, something like that. This is now Enscape's version of it, and I'm very excited about it. So immediately what we have up here is the collaboration tab. I have different ways of sorting this by ID, by title, by state. I can just show all, and I can actually choose a local version or a non-local version. So I'm just going to use a local version, and I've got my username. That's not a big deal. You would probably put your name, so that the idea being you can see who started a particular issue, who has resolved an issue, and who's dealing with the current issue. So this will be your name. And the source here, local, that simply means I'm working within this project only. Now, the other option we have is Bim Track. And if you're familiar with Bim Track, I have not used it personally, but my knowledge of Bim Track is that it is basically an advanced version of issue tracking, and it does work directly with Revit. So this can all be integrated with Enscape and Revit all together. So I would highly encourage, if you already use Bim Track, to use Bim Track, and this will directly link to your project in Bim Track, which will inherently link your Revit model, your Enscape model to Bim Track, and everything can be tracked together. So that's fantastic. Now I'm going to focus on the local version because I have not heard of many people that use Bim Track. Now, while I think it's good, I think we're just going to focus on local. So in my office, we're probably going to just use local. We're going to have our username, and we're going to be able to see who starts an issue, who is now then resolving them and marking them as complete. So that's great. Let's go ahead and leave this as it is. I'll hit save, and we're still working in our local. We have the option here of exporting or importing issues from BCF, and that is BIM collaboration format. I'm not exactly familiar with that either, but my knowledge of it is that it does involve BIM tracks, and it's involved in that as well. It's not something I'm going to necessarily need to use so much. It's basically, for lack of a better term, it is a log of all the different information that you have here in the collaboration tab in Enscape that you can then export for your record, or you can import from a different software that does export BIM collaboration format files, and you can import those here. That seems kind of troublesome to me. Of course, it's here, and it's nice that we have the option to do that. I can see this more of being useful in exporting this as a log, as I can see all of my issues being tracked and completed, exterior to Enscape running and Enscape going and all that, but we're not going to focus on that so much as we are the collaboration tab itself and how we're going to get to use that. So if we see here, I've got no issues, and it's going to say no issues available. Please click here to create a new issue. Now, the idea is that I'm going to go to a location, and I'm going to determine that I need to edit something. I need to change something. And so as soon as I do that, I'm going to come to this point here. I'm going to angle my camera right there, and I'm going to click no issues available. Please click here to create a new issue. So I'm going to create my first issue. And as soon as I do that, you can see I get a rendering. It's starting a rendering. You can see here it says rendering in progress. I have mixed feelings about the idea of it having to render, but nonetheless, the idea is that you have a rendering to go off of that can track this change. And so when we look up here to the left, we can see we've got state is new, and I have options between done, in progress, new, and removed. Right now, because this is a new issue in my project, I'm going to hit new, make sure that's new. It's got the date here, the creation date, the title. Well, maybe what we want to do is look at the concrete. So I'm going to call this concrete floor. And in the description, I might say something like change concrete floor type, something like that. An idea that as someone is flying through this model, they can see, oh, I need to address this. I need to change this. Okay. And as soon as I do that, I have all this information. I can immediately save it if I want to. I can also decide, well, I really want to get a better angle. I want to look more right here so I can get an idea of what I'm looking at. And I can simply hover over here and it says update the issue's camera position to match the current position in Enscape. So it's basically going to re-render this position and give me a new rendering that's associated to this issue. That's pretty nice that you have renderings or images associated to all these issues. So it's not just, a text that's floating off into this tab that you have to somehow find it. Okay, well, that's great. At this point, I can add more comments if I need to. Ideally, this is probably used for people discussing changes within a specific issue. And you can see all of them populate here as you start to have a discussion between multiple users. So going back to details here, I don't need to update anything else. And so I'm just going to hit save. And as soon as I hit save, I can see I've got this number 2 concrete floor. And that orange indicates that it's new, and it says new right there. Great. So I'm going to start flying around here and just look around my model. And I can immediately see this really cool looking, it's more or less, it's kind of an AR element, an augmented reality element, but I'm in my collaborate tab still. And because I can hover over this thing and see that it is pointing to this particular issue. And so I have this icon that's now floating in my model only when I'm in the collaboration tab to show me that I have a new issue or I have a particular issue and here's where it is. So before we get into changing anything like that, I'm going to come back, I'm going to come inside and we're going to make another issue and start to see the difference between states and all of that. So I'm going to come down here, create an issue. As soon as I do that, it's going to do a rendering. I wish I didn't have to do that again, but it is what I can tell the lowest quality. And so it takes no time whatsoever. So let's do this. Change rug color. Okay. Look at different colored rugs. Really simple. I don't want this to be complicated, but we're going to look at the rug. So I want to actually address the rug itself. So I'm going to come over here and just look at the rug. Okay. That's great. And I'm going to save that, make sure that's new. Perfect. And so now again, as I fly around, I can see there's my icon, and the icon is actually based off of the location that rendering was taken from, where you saw that we updated that position. That icon is placed in that point. You'll also notice that the color of the icon is directly associated to the type or the state in which that issue is in. So both of these are considered new, all right? And that's why they're orange. So let's come back over here. And if I come back outside, I can select this icon. And so if I'm anywhere that I can select it, obviously you can see I can hover over it and see it was modified 2 minutes ago. I can now select it. And as soon as I select it, my camera goes immediately to that location, which is awesome. So I see this rendering. I don't have to like blow it up or anything. I can, of course, expand this window and open it up separately if I want to, but don't see a real need to do that because my camera's in this location and I can see what's going on. And then I can also begin to address, okay, the concrete floor, change the concrete floor type. Perfect. I can come in here and make my own comments again, of course. But what we want to look at is, let's say I changed this concrete. I went to the trouble of changing it. I changed the color, changed the type, whatever. I can choose any of these different states. I can say that it's in progress or done. Maybe I'm starting to look at it and I've changed the type, but I'm not fully sure. So let's say I'm in progress. I'm going to make a comment of changed concrete floor color. Okay, let's say I've changed the color. Perfect. So there's I've got my concrete floor. You see that it is in progress. The color of the icon is now changed because it's now in progress. I can click on it, see the comment that my user, like me, that I just made, and you could see all the other users that happen to make this multiple comments and address this issue as well. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to orbit around and we can look at this icon and now it's yellow. And again, that is perfectly in track with the color of the state. And that's really nice because as soon as you memorize what these colors are and what they mean, you can immediately see what all these different objects and icons are in your project and where they are and what needs to be addressed. So if you have a bunch of orange, then you can see they're clearly new and they need to be addressed. So that's great. That is really great, really simple. You'll notice that if I am in this particular state, or I'm in this, you'll notice if I'm in this particular issue that I can't see any other issues. Like the issue over here that was looking at this rug, I can't see it anymore. But as soon as I leave and go back to the other, basically to see all of them, I can see clearly that I've got my two different issues there. So now we can start to look at the different ways of sorting these. We can sort by ID, and that's going to be the default. And ID is just simply the number that was created. And so this happened to be the second issue I made, the third issue I made, and so on. That's great. It's just simply in chronological order. The date that you made it, the time you made it, it'll tell you when it was made. I can use sort by title, and it's just going to simply alphabetize that for me. That's great. I don't know why you'd want to do that necessarily, but nonetheless, it's there. You might want to organize these. Maybe you have a system that you've built into the office and it's just a numbering system. Maybe you simply number these a particular way, or maybe you give an importance, like an A is an important. So you do A underscore and then the title of it. So then you can sort by alphabetically if you want. And then finally sort by state. Now, of course, I've got only two different states here, but it's going to sort basically from new to done. And that's really nice that it's going to do it, because you can put everything that's in theory most critical or most new at the top so that you can address it first and address it quickly. I like just dealing with the sort by ID, and that works just fine. So again, let's come in here to the concrete floor, and let's say I've gone through everything that I need to, and I'm done. So I can hit done. That's great. I can save it, and I can back out of here and see that it's gone. It's done. It's removed. Now this is helpful because it's done. It's not going to interfere, but the icon doesn't show up anymore. And that's okay, because we can come up here and choose show all. And as soon as I click show all, and if you could always have show all if you want, you can simply see it right there. And you can see everything that's green has a state of green, a state of done. It's done. And you don't have to worry about it. And so as soon as I click show all to be off, it's going to go away. Now I'm going to come in here again, and instead of that, choose removed. And of course I want to save it, and I'm going to back out there, and still it's just another form, another state that's really nice, really simple to use. This has now been, quote, removed or dealt with. Now I'm going to take this one step further, and instead of doing that, I'm going to just go to the trash can and I'm going to delete it. It's gone permanently. I don't need to worry about it anymore. The icon's nowhere to be found because it's gone. Even if with show all's on, it's simply gone. So that is the basics of the collaboration tab, and I'm really excited to get to use it at my firm, and because the idea is that we're in 3D all the time. There's so much to do in 3D, and I can really tell where Enscape is going with this, in that they want us to live in the model. They want us to live in Enscape, which makes perfect sense. They're selling a product. They want you to experience their product even more. So the fact that we can track these issues within Enscape, within a visual environment, is awesome. It makes things so much easier. I can immediately jump from Enscape into Revit. And this is particularly nice because I don't use Bim Track. I have not used Bim Track. And I don't have any way of tracking issues or anything that needs to be modeled in Revit. And so this is a really quick way of being able to jump around the model. I can quickly jump around the model there, and I don't even have to be able to navigate. Even if you're someone who doesn't know how to navigate Enscape, you can simply tell someone to click through all these issues and then deal with them in Revit. It's that simple. And so I'm really excited about this, especially to get to use this in my office and to see really what it can do when you have multiple people working on something like this and adding issues to your project so they can easily be done and more quickly be addressed in 3D. We're actually worried more about the 3D model now than ever. And honestly, I am all for getting the model correctly modeled so that your documents can reflect that correctly. And it makes perfect sense. Why not model perfectly? Why not model as perfectly as you can? Why not model everything in 3D if you can. And this collaboration tool is going to allow you to do just that in Enscape, and it's fantastic. So something else we need to look at that is new within Enscape is they've got some new assets. And of course, it's just, something you can click and drag into your project. Nothing's really special there. But if I click new, there's a bunch of new healthcare. That was the biggest thing that they were touting in 2.8. But again, there's more than just that, clearly. There's all kinds of curtains and everything, but the biggest thing was the healthcare assets. And that's really nice if you work in the healthcare industry. Click and drag those in. Very easy to populate your scene and see all the different healthcare products. And of course, this makes perfect sense with the pandemic going on. Just drag all these in. They look great. And so finally, the last thing we want to look at with Enscape 2.8 is a little more subtle, but it's really nice. So in the visual settings here, I can see that really everything is all the same. But when I go to atmosphere, we can see that there's wind. This is fantastic. Wind. It's really cool. And so by default, the wind is going to be set at an intensity of 25% with a direction angle of 0. Now, I can't necessarily say where the direction is by default. You can probably figure that out yourself to see which direction it's actually moving. I'm not going to quite do that necessarily. But what I am going to do is actually look at the wind in Enscape. Now, as I move around, you can see that the trees are moving. And if I come in here on the grass, we can see that the grass is moving. Now, when I stop moving the camera, and this has always been the case with Enscape, even if I look up, you can start to see all these trees are starting to move and the leaves are starting to move, and it looks really nice. It looks more realistic. And so the idea is you don't want this always running, and you can clearly see that when I stop moving the camera, it stops moving. It's using less of your computer that way. But when you are moving around, it is nice to be able to see that you are in a more realistic looking environment. And this is particularly useful because you'll now have wind available in your animations. And so as I'm moving, of course, as I'm moving in an animation as well, the movements of all these leaves, trees, grass, and everything will also be picked up by the wind. Now I'm going to come back to all the settings that we have, and I'm going to up the intensity. I'm going to go ahead and put it at 100 just so we can see how drastic it can be. The 25% is, a nice breeze, whereas 100% is closer to what we might call a hurricane. Now, as I start to move, you can clearly see the trees are having a heyday, and they are moving. And same with the grass. It is really moving. And I love this. It's realistic. Now, this is a little over the top. Of course, I have it at 100%, so it makes sense. But I'm going to put this back down to 25% and show you the water. So you might think it's just the vegetation that is going to reflect the wind. But in fact, if I look at the water here, we can see that, okay, you can see the water moving slightly, and it's moving in this direction towards my face on your screen. And okay, it's moving. It's moving along with the wind, which is kind of hard to tell the direction, but I'm going to put this back to 100, and you can easily see that the water is adjusting, and the speed of the water is moving based on the speed of the wind, which is actually realistic, and it's really nice. And so look at that water go. It makes sense that as the wind is blowing so much faster in a particular direction, that the water would move more quickly as well. And I love this. It looks so much more realistic. And so to really prove to you that the direction is working and that everything is based on the wind direction, I'm going to change this wind direction by 180 degrees, and we can see everything flip around. So let's look at we can see the trees moving this particular direction. We can see the water moving towards us here. And I'm going to go and change that wind direction to 180 degrees, and we can start to see that it indeed will flip around. So there's 180 degrees. Come back to Enscape here, and then now everything's moving the opposite direction. That's really fantastic, and I think the wind being in Enscape now is awesome. It just makes it more realistic, and I'm excited that we're getting that much closer to a more realistic looking scene, even if the wind looks ridiculous like this at times. Be sure to keep that down a little lower. Obviously, this looks ridiculous unless you are trying to render some stormy looking scene. Of course, that works all the same. But that's going to do it for Enscape 2.8. Really excited about this update. We looked at all the new collaboration updates that came with this Enscape update. The wind is awesome. Of course, the healthcare assets and more are great to see. If you happen to learn something or just like the video, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out so much. Also, change the phase of that subscribe button to existing. That also helps me out too. If you stuck around this long, you're awesome. I can't thank you enough for watching this long. I sure hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.